What's up, guys? It's Ross Dolan from Immolation. You're listening to Agoraphobic News.
Hey, Milos here with Ross Dolan of Immolation. Hello, sir.
How are you?
Fine.
Good. Good to be here in Serbia once again, our second time, and it's going to be a good one tonight. I know it.
And what do you like about Serbia the most?
It was great. Our first time here, we came with Marduk, I think, in 2012, and it was our first time here. We had planned to come a few times in the past, but we couldn't get into the country. So that was our first time here, and it was amazing. I mean, the people were just so welcoming, so cool, so enthusiastic to see the band. And after the show, we met a lot of people, a lot of really cool people. We hung out with a lot of people outside of the club before the show and after the show, and it was just a really good vibe, really positive vibe. The people were excited, and the show was crazy. It was a great show. Just people went nuts. So yeah, it's good to be back. We were looking forward to this show, believe it or not. This was like one of the shows on the tour itinerary we were truly looking forward to, and that's no bullshit. So.
That's cool. And do you have some crazy story about related to Serbia?
Nothing crazy. I mean, I did meet a fan who was very overly emotional because our music meant a lot to his father, and he told me that his father had passed away. He was a soldier. He passed away in the war, and he. Father, You're Not a Father was one of his favorite songs, and we played that song the last time we were here, and he said he was very emotional when he heard that song, and it meant a lot to him, and I think it was his father who had gotten him into death metal and into Immolation, so for him it was a really cool moment to meet us and to kind of, relay that story to us, so yeah, not a crazy story, but a very, very emotional, like kind of heartfelt story, which is kind of cool, we don't get that much, so it was very cool. So I remember Serbia specifically for that one fan, who shared that with us. So
yeah, that's cool. In 2000, you released an album called "Close to a World Below." Was that the turning point for the band, or?
In some ways, I mean, the first three albums, I think, were a slow progression to get to Close to World Below, and you could tell the first album was, a culmination of all our demo material from '88 and '89 and what we wrote in between the album's release. And then Here and After was, came after 5 years of not, putting any records out. So it took us a while to kind of gel and to kind of get to where we were at close to, at the point where we released Close to World Below. Failures for God was a very chaotic, wacky album, a lot of crazy time changes. So I think with Close to World Below, we kind of took all those elements and kind of, made something that was more coherent in a sense, what I'm saying, something that people could latch on to more. And it was still dark, it was still very much Immolation. So yeah, in some ways it was kind of a turning point. And we always looked at it that way. The first three albums were what they were, and then from Close to World Below forward, we started kind of going in, I think, a more articulated direction, maybe, so.
And that album is more dissonant than everything that you released from.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of dissonance on all the records, I think. That one did have a lot of dissonance, but I think even the new record has a lot of very dissonant, discordant stuff on it, and that's just how Bob writes. That's how he composes, and it creates some very unique sounds and a unique atmosphere for the music, I think, Yeah,
and how do you like the production on Harnessing Ruin?
Harnessing Ruin, I think, could have been a lot better. It could have been a lot stronger. I think that album faltered in the mastering process because when we heard it before it was mastered, it was really huge sounding. It was heavy, it was crushing. And then once it was mastered, it sounded very compressed and weird sounding, and we weren't really happy with it. But we were kind of out of time at that point, like with every record, we're always like pushing it right to the deadline. So we really didn't have time to go back and remaster it and to mess around with it. So it is what it is. That's one of the few albums I'd really like to go back and just kind of redo, because I think it's such a great album. It's it's probably one of our heaviest albums, and it's probably one of our more straightforward albums, less crazy craziness. It's a very straight to the point album, and it's a very dark album. It has a lot of dark songs on it, but I think a lot of that got lost, especially the drum. The drum production was so compressed sounding and weird. You know, a lot of the cool stuff that Steve did in those songs got lost. So. And again, I don't think it was so much production; it was the way it was mastered. You know, because we heard both, and if you heard it before the mastering, you would have been like, "Wow," you know. But yeah, not so much after.
And would you re-record that album?
Maybe remix. I don't know about re-recording. If you re-record something, you're changing that dynamic, that feel that you had when it was originally done, that magic, you know. So I think it would change the album completely if we re-recorded it, you know. Maybe a remix. Maybe go back in and to make it sound the way it was supposed to sound with the original tracks, I think would probably be the best way to go, you know, honestly. So, but that's not in the cards right now. We don't have, you know, that's the last thing we're thinking of right now. You know, we have a lot on our plate, so.
And you guys are from New York, right?
Yeah, I mean, originally the band was all from New York back in the 80s when we started. Bob and I are still in New York. Steve, our drummer, is out in Ohio, and our new guitar player, Alex Books, is from Washington, D.C. He's originally from Philadelphia, but he's lives in Washington, D.C. now. So.
And how strong was New York death metal scene at the time in the late 80s and early 90s when compared with Tampa, Florida, let's say?
I think it was probably one of the strongest scenes, in my opinion. It was definitely a darker scene, you know, as far as the music that was being generated. I think it was a great scene. I mean, you're right. You had your Florida scene, but remember, a lot of the Florida bands were from New York. You know, Malevolent Creation, Deicide, you know, Cannibal Corpse,
Suffocation.
Yeah. Well, Suffocation's a New York band. Yeah, I'm not talking about bands from New York. I'm talking about bands who went down and recorded down in Florida. Bands who you associate with the Florida scene, like Malevolent Creation, Deicide, Cannibal Corpse. They're all New York bands who went down to Florida originally. So yeah, I think the New York scene had a very strong scene. So.
Yeah, and. Since you guys are from New York, when were you at the time 9/11 happened?
I was working, and I remember I saw from where I lived in Yonkers, you could see when the first tower got hit. I saw the smoke. I heard it on the radio first, and then I looked and I saw the smoke coming out of the first tower. And I was like, wow, I knew it was something serious, you know, because just by the look of the smoke and well, yeah, after everything happened 3 days later, you smelt, yeah, it was really bad. It was just like, you know, electrical burning, electrical smell, and then, you know, it was just horrible for days. It was really bad, yeah. It's fucked up time.
And did that event had an impact on your lyrics, maybe?
Definitely. Unholy Cult lyrically was a direct result of what we saw and had to deal with and experience on 9/11, you know. And I think the lyrics from that record forward focus more on, I think, world, not so much politics, but world events, you know, and just humanity's general failure, because it all comes down to people. It's you know, we elect the governments, we put them in power, we allow them to do what they do, you know what I'm saying? So it's really, it's all of our problem collectively, you know. It's a human flaw, I think, you know, and I don't think it's ever going to change. It hasn't changed for centuries. Since the beginning of time, mankind has always been a fucked up species, and that's just the way it is. Truly. So
there's a rigor mortis song called Holocaust, which is about a nuclear apocalypse. Yep. And how scary were the 80s? I mean,
well, the 80s, you know, there were a lot, you know, that's all you heard, you know, during the Cold War. It was all about the nuclear threat, and it was just ubiquitous at the time, you know, and it was everywhere. It was on the news, but you know what? We were younger at the time, and we just kind of lived. You know, we were kind of oblivious to politics and to a lot of the world scene back then, because you were just so inundated with it every day. You know, and I guess if you let that stuff get to you, it just kind of crushes you, and you just can't exist under that weight. So you know, we had our music, and I think music was a great outlet for that. You know, to kind of vent a lot of that. You know, I guess frustration with just the world climate in general. And we see the same thing now. It's the same thing today. Nothing has changed. We're pretty much on the brink of another Cold War, but it's.
I mean, it is Cold War with three world powers, I think. So.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's good business for the arms industry. It's good business for the war industry. It's all about money at the end of the day. That's all it's about, man. It's never been about anything else. It's about fucking money and politics. That's it. If the people really had a say, there'd be none of this bullshit. People are people. We've been all over the world. We meet so many cool people in every region of the planet. And it's a shame that you have just small groups of people that kind of dictate, how the world, moves. And it's sad, really. So, what are you gonna do? You can't change the world, though.
And what is the song? I mean, the lyrics of "Crown the Liar." What is that song about?
Well, "Crown the Liar" was inspired by, I think, our political, our place politically in the world during that time, during the Bush administration. So that was kind of a song that was inspired by just our, I think, general discontent with our government and our politics and our president at the time. So. It's not very specific lyrically, but I think that's where the inspiration came from. I mean, there was a lot of, uncertainty back then as to where we were going after 9/11, and which direction we were taking things, and it seemed to be going down a very dark path. And so a song like that was a direct result of that political climate. It's not a political song, but it's about, I think it's about politics in general, how we put these people on pedestals and we give them these crowns to lead us, and they kind of speak with a forked tongue, you know what I'm saying? They kind of lie here, and they tell half-truths or no truths at all, so you can tell I'm not a fan of politics at all. So.
That brutal truth song, "Kill All Politicians."
Yeah. They got it right.
And Kingdom of Conspiracy reminds us that we're living in this Orwellian nightmare.
Well, we are.
Is there a chance to wake up?
I would hope so. I try to have hope. I think a lot of people see it, but we're very much attached to all the conveniences of the modern age, cell phones, computers, social media, So it's just another way for governments and these agencies to be more invasive, in the name of security, you know what I'm saying? But it's all bullshit, once again. I don't buy it at all, so, so.
And is there any concept behind the Majesty and Decay album? Majestic about Decay.
Concept album like Kingdom of Conspiracy, I think Majesty and Decay, again, the title represents just the breakdown of our political structures, our world structures, showing a very majestic face and power, but really it's just nothing but corruption and decay underneath, and that's kind of what it's about. That's the general idea. That's what inspired the title. It's not a concept album, like I said, so every song on the album touches on a lot of different subjects, whether it be, overpopulation, whether it be just a lot of different inspirations from World War II era ideas. But anyway, it's kind of a mixed bag of ideas, but Majesty and Decay in general is about that, It's about the darkness and the corruption beneath the shiny surface, so.
And on that album there is a song called In Human Form. And Chuck Schuldiner had a song of the same name.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that at the time because I wasn't really a fan of the later Death albums. I was only Bloody Gore and Leprosy. That's it for me. I jumped off after that point, so I was totally oblivious to any of the Death songs after that point. So excuse my ignorance, but
And what is like your the funniest memory of Chuck? I mean. Do you have some story related?
We met him a couple of times back in the day. We met him on the Scream Bloody Gore tour back in like 88 maybe. Yeah, they played in Connecticut, so we got to meet him, and he was touring with Terry Butler and Rick Ross and Bill Andrews, so we got to meet all those guys. And then ironically, our first tour in Europe was with Bill Andrews, Terry Butler, Rick Ross, and Cam Lee and Steve Swanson from Massacre. So we met them, and then we wound up touring with them as Massacre a few years later, And yeah, we played a show with Death at a local venue by us. You know, so yeah, I mean, you know.
And did you used to know Roger Patterson of Atheist?
I didn't know him well. I mean, I met him once or twice, and he was a really nice guy. I met him at in Milwaukee, one of the Milwaukee Metal Fests. Atheist was there. We wound up at a hotel room party with like some of the obituary guys and the Atheist guys, and I met Roger and I talked to him, and he was a really humble guy, awesome guy, super nice guy, and just a phenomenal talent. So
Yeah,
just a super shame that he passed. You know, it's like
Cliff.
exactly. So
Same scenario.
it's a shame because such talented, humble, and I stress that because I really I admire very talented people who are very grounded and humble, and he was one of those guys. You know what I'm saying? And that's awesome. You know,
And
much
do you-
respect.
Do you consider the Atheist as the first technical death metal band, or?
I guess. I mean, you know, I never. You know, when they were Ravage, they weren't that technical. You know, pre-Atheist, it was very savage. You know, kind of almost thrashy kind of death metal, which was kind of cool. Yeah, so the earlier Atheist stuff, and then they got, I guess, more technical, more progressive. But I guess, you know. You know, I'm not a huge tech guy. I'm not into overly technical stuff. I like some technical stuff.
Nintendo Core.
What's that?
Nintendo Core. You know?
Yeah, that's what they call it. But you know, there are a lot of great bands that I think are phenomenal players. You know, and I like the technical bands that can mix like, you know, the technical end with the catchy end and kind of, you know, suck you in like that. You know, when it's just all, you know, super tech stuff. It's like, it's cool from a musician's point, you know, but sometimes, you know, you have to be in the mood for that. You know, I like stuff that has a lot of feelings, something that has a dark atmosphere. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
For me, it doesn't have to be super tech. Sometimes the more simplistic stuff is the stuff that kind of hits you hardest. You know what I'm saying? It hits you here. You know, so yeah. You know, and people used to say we were a technical band, and I totally disagree with that. I mean, we had a lot of wacky time signatures and maybe a lot of riffs, but it wasn't. I don't.
Pinch squeals.
Yeah, but I don't think that ever made us a technical band. You know, in my opinion. But you know, it's only my opinion.
And what is like Immolation's biggest trademark?
I think the fact that we've always been consistent. I think we've always delivered an Immolation album every time we put out an Immolation album. It's never different. It's always, I think, improved upon since the next record. And every album's completely different. But I think our style has been established since the demo days. And I think we've never, like, strayed from that. You know, we never tried anything, different or, tried to go down to get more fans. We always kind of kept it true to the essence of what it was when we started. And I think our fans respect that, at least. You know, we never broke up. We never went away for 10 years and came back. I mean, we've been consistent, and I think that's one thing I'm super proud of. And I think our fans respect us for that,
And how come that bands like Suffocation are bigger than Immolation, even though they had...
I don't know. I guess it's taste. It's a matter of taste, I mean, great guys. We're friends with those guys. We've known them forever. I fucking love the band, support the band. But, I guess it's in the eyes of the beholder. We're always a band that kind of did our own thing. You know what I'm saying? And we just kind of wrote for ourselves. And I know some of our stuff isn't easy to kind of latch onto. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know. It doesn't. I mean, I could care less. To me, it's not about who's bigger, who sells more record, who has more Facebook likes. That's all fucking bullshit to me. To me, it's about being consistent and writing good music. That's all it's about, writing honest music, and that's kind of always what we've been about. That's always what we've done, and I think our fans respect us for that. So.
Yeah. And why did you name the band Immolation? I mean.
Well, when we switched over from Rigor Mortis, we needed to change the name because obviously it was different material. So our old drummer Neil came up with the name, and we liked it, and we used it, So that was it. The first Shun band, I have to add.
And there's like self-immolation of people who are protesting against the government. Do you have some song about that?
Nothing specifically about that. I mean, the idea of making an extreme sacrifice for something you believe in is kind of our story. It's about the band, really. You know,
Jesus.
We've sacrificed a lot to continually do this. You know what I'm saying? We've sacrificed a lot in our personal lives to follow this dream of ours to play music. So it has a deeper meaning for us, you know, but that's what obviously immolation means, you know, to sacrifice, you know. So
And a lot of your stuff was like satanic and
never satanic.
so it's anti-Christian then.
It's anti-religion, yeah. I mean, we came at it from the Christian perspective because that's how we were raised. So that's what we were more familiar with. But it was an anti-religious message, never satanic. And I was always very clear about that from day one. Every interview I did, we are not a satanic band. You know, we use God and the devil as personifications for good and evil in the world, but never a literal sense, because all religion is bullshit to me. It's all fucking bullshit. So I don't care what religion it is. It's all man-made stuff, you know, that sucks weak-minded people in, and it gets them to fucking, you know, whatever.
You know, some might
follow some crazy ideal, you know. So
I mean, some may say that you owe a lot to Jesus because I mean the whole death metal band scene and black metal, because it's all around Jesus, you know.
Well, in our neck of the woods, you know, Christianity is, you know, has a big, casts a big shadow of a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? And it directs people in very, down very dark paths, I think, in life. You know, and it doesn't have to, it never had to be like that. I mean, I think there could be some good. You know, I mean, if you know, but when it's interpreted literally, I think is when it goes foul. You know. You know, the idea of treating people with respect and you know, taking care of your neighbors and doing the right thing and not lying and not stealing and not killing. Yeah, those are obviously things we need to kind of follow, but I don't think you need religion to kind of drive that home. It's just common sense. It's what happens in a society where you have, you know, morals and values and, you know, law-abiding people. You know, I don't think religion needs to play a part in this anymore. We're not in the dark ages anymore. You know what I'm saying? People today are literate. People weren't literate back then. You know, you didn't have a serfdom and like kings and monarchs. Well, we kind of do, but you know what I'm saying? It's a different time now. You know, so.
And it's still a kingdom of conspiracy.
Yeah, well, it always will be.
And what is the idea behind the Atonement album cover?
Well, the Atonement artwork was inspired by four of the lines in the song Atonement. The song Atonement is about religious extremism, you know. And there were four lines in that song that we used to kind of inspire the artwork. You know, angel of hatred, spread your wings, shower your thorns down upon us. So that's kind of what that was about. So that's where the inspiration came from.
Okay, do you have some final words for the fans?
Thank you so much. It's an absolute honor to be back here in Serbia. We can't wait to see everybody tonight at the show. We're going to go do sound check right now, and thank you for the great interview.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Pleasure.